A hero's applause for the king of country music.
Keith Urban's name brings to mind blazing guitar solos, chart-topping songs, and a picture-perfect life. But few stories in the world of music are as heartbreaking and devastating as the tragedy of Keith Urban. Behind the spotlight and that famous smile is a life filled with deep pain, personal battles, and a fight for survival that cuts deeper than fame ever could. Let's look beyond the stage, lights, and into the man who's lived it all. Keith had the fame, the talent, and the world at his feet, but none of it could silence the storm raging inside him. As the crowds cheered and the music soared, he was quietly unraveling. What looked like success from the outside hid a dangerous spiral within: the descent into addiction. In the early 1990s, as Keith Urban's career was just beginning, he packed up his guitar and his dreams and took a bold leap, moving to Nashville. For him, Nashville was the place. The name had been stamped into his heart from childhood, thanks to the words Nashville, Tennessee, printed on the back of his dad's old country records. He believed with everything in him that this was where his music dreams would come true. But once he arrived, the reality hit hard. Nashville wasn't the warm, welcoming land of opportunity he imagined. Instead, it was a tough, competitive world with its own rules, and Keith felt like an outsider. As a new face from overseas, he felt lonely and out of place. Breaking into the tight-knit country music circle wasn't easy, especially in a scene that often favored those who looked and acted a certain way. He was told point-blank that without a cowboy hat or a haircut to match the classic country image, he wouldn't make it. That pressure to fit in constantly clashed with who he really was. On top of that, the industry around him was intense. The country music scene came with crazy hours, constant rejection, a non-stop party culture, and easy access to substances and alcohol. All of this created the perfect storm for someone already battling demons from a painful past. Desperate to fit in and escape the crushing weight of loneliness and rejection, Keith Urban turned to a dangerous outlet. He admitted he stepped up his drinking and started experimenting more. Substances, drawn to a fast-living crowd where partying hard felt like belonging. But this false sense of comfort came at a heavy price. Throughout the late 1990s, his struggles with alcohol and worsened, gradually taking a tighter hold on his life. The addiction began to bleed into every part of his world, hurting relationships, clouding his judgment, and putting his rising career at risk. One painful example was his allegedly missing a major recording session with the Dixie Chicks because of a brutal hangover. This wasn't just partying gone too far, it was a deep and destructive spiral that nearly cost him everything. In 1998, he took a brave first step by checking into Cumberland Heights, a rehab center in Nashville. But addiction doesn't let go easily. Despite his efforts, Keith found himself caught in a painful cycle of relapse over the next few years. He later opened up about how deeply this struggle affected him, saying, "I knew I wasn't at my full potential, and that's what was starting to get to me. I was enslaved. I was living a very, very small life." Those words paint a clear picture of how addiction had wrapped itself around him, shrinking his world, stifling his dreams, and making him feel like a shadow of who he truly was. During his darkest years, Keith Urban admitted something deeply personal. Many of his early upbeat songs weren't written from a place of joy, but from pain. He called them whistling in the dark songs or flotation devices. These tracks sounded hopeful, but they were really a way for him to fake the feelings he wished he had. He wasn't happy. He just wanted to be. Writing cheerful. Music was like whistling in a graveyard, something people do to feel brave when they're scared. Behind the catchy melodies and feel-good lyrics was a man struggling to keep himself afloat. His songs were like life rafts, helping him survive emotionally, while the world saw a rising star full of optimism. Keith was quietly battling demons, using his music as a mask and a form of self-rescue. To really understand the country music superstar, we need to go back, way before the bright lights of Nashville, to a childhood that, even with music all around, was far from a fairy tale. This is where his deep struggles began, leaving emotional scars that couldn't be seen but ran deep. The troubled home. Keith Urban was born in the quiet town of Whangarei, New Zealand, worlds away from the flashing lights of Hollywood or the country music stages of Nashville. At just 2 years old, his family packed up and moved to Australia, beginning a life that would be shaped by both incredible talent and painful challenges. From the start, music was in Keith's blood. Surrounded by a father who drummed and a grandfather who played piano, music was always there. His first instrument was a ukulele. His parents gave him at age 5, a toy, perhaps, but it sparked something real. My dad said I could strum it along with songs on the radio. I wasn't playing chords or anything, but the rhythm was there, Keith recalled. His father, Robert Urban, was his first stylist and strongest supporter even, stitching together Keith's early stage outfits and encouraging him to follow his dreams all the way to America. On the surface, Robert Urban looked like the ultimate supporter, but behind the scenes, Keith faced a much harsher truth. Robert was a strict father who struggled with alcohol, and his love was often masked by anger and fear. I don't recall him ever telling me he loved me as a kid, Keith once admitted. Imagine growing up in a home where music was your escape because of the pain you felt every day. For Keith, the man who gave him his passion also left behind wounds that would take years to heal. Keith later said, "I've seen what a beast addiction can be. I'd want to push people away from it, unless they pushed back so hard that I knew they really wanted in." While his father's anger and alcoholism cast a long shadow, things were even more complicated at home. His mother battled addiction too. He watched her struggle while his father eventually walked out. "When I was sick, my dad bailed. My mom faced lifelong challenges with addiction. I was left alone," he said. "I had to be so disciplined because if I took one wrong step, I knew I'd get swallowed up in it." As Keith got older, the scars of his childhood didn't just fade. They followed him, showing up in his own battles with addiction. He found himself face to face with the same demons that haunted his parents. But just when it seemed like the darkness might win, love stepped in, strong, steady, and determined to pull him back from the edge. A love that saved. Nicole Kidman's intervention. Just when it seemed like Keith Urban was stuck in a cycle he couldn't break, someone walked into his life and changed everything. Her name is Nicole Kidman. It was 2005 at the G-Day USA Gala, a glitzy event meant to celebrate Australian talent in America. But for Keith, it felt like fate. The moment he saw Nicole, he felt something different. Something deep. Something that hit him straight in the soul. He vividly described feeling like he'd snuck into the royal ball, completely captivated by what he called Nicole's truly otherworldly aura, seeing her as a real-life princess. It was like meeting someone I'd known forever, Keith would later admit. There was this connection, immediate, real. But after that magical moment, his insecurities stepped in, so he disappeared. Nicole gave him her number, probably expecting a call soon, a day or two, maybe a week at most. But Keith didn't call her for several months. In a 2017 interview with Ellen DeGeneres, Nicole laughed about it. "I remember thinking I had such a crush on him, and he wasn't interested in me. It's true, he didn't call me for ages. So, what happened? Why the delay? Well, Keith was in a dark place. His career was taking off, but inside, he was falling apart. Addiction had its claws in him, and the thought of someone as polished and poised as Nicole actually liking him felt impossible. Somebody had given me her number," Keith said in a 2018 interview on Australian TV. "And I had it in my pocket for a while. I kept looking at it thinking, if I call this number, she's going to answer, and I don't know what to say." He didn't feel worthy. "I wasn't in a very healthy place in my life. I'd never have thought she'd see anything in a guy like me." But eventually, something changed. Maybe it was a moment of clarity. Maybe it was just courage. Either way, one day he picked up the phone and dialed. Nicole answered, and just like that, the walls started to come down. "We talked and talked and talked. It was effortless," he said. That single phone call turned into hours of conversation, and those conversations grew into something more, a connection that would soon become a lifeline. They went on their first date 4 months after meeting and quickly fell in love, marrying in Nicole's hometown of Sydney, Australia, in June 2006. However, the honeymoon period was tragically short-lived. Just 4 months into their marriage, Keith's unresolved addictions, which he admitted he had done really nothing about, blew their fresh marriage to smithereens. Nicole was away at the time, and Keith was left alone with his old demons. That familiar darkness crept in fast, quiet at first, then all-consuming. In his words, "I felt very alone, very lost," he said, "and vulnerable to my old ways. That whole part of my world came back in and swamped me." He relapsed, and this time the fear hit him hard. "I remember just feeling so terrified." This was the breaking point. But instead of walking away, Nicole Kidman did something extraordinary. She rolled up her sleeves and fought for him. She staged a full-blown intervention, rallying a tight circle of Keith's closest friends from Nashville, people who loved him, people who wanted him to heal. The love in that room, it was just right, Keith remembered. To see love in action in that way, I had never experienced anything like it before. Nicole encouraged him to check into rehab. This wasn't about saving their marriage anymore. This was about saving his life, and he listened. "I was very, very blessed to have Nick call an intervention on me," he told the Daily Telegraph. "I'd caused the implosion of my fresh marriage." He praised her efforts, saying, Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love. That's the thing about Nick. She loves life. I've actually never met anyone who has such a passion for being alive. She knows the importance of expressing feelings, and too, I wasn't raised like this at all. In late 2006, Keith checked into the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage, California, for a 3-month inpatient program. He left behind his guitar, a massive sacrifice for an obsessed musician, as part of the process to discover who he was away from music, which had defined him for so long. And just as Keith began to find himself again, a new chapter was about to unfold, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of family. Though Nicole already had 2 children, Isabella and Connor, from her previous marriage to Tom Cruise, she was ready to grow her family again. In July 2008, she and Keith Urban welcomed their daughter, Sunday Rose. We feel immensely blessed and grateful to be given this beautiful baby girl, the couple shared in a heartfelt statement. She's an absolute delight. They went on to thank everyone who had been supporting them through this special time. We want to thank everybody that has kept us in their thoughts and prayers. We feel very blessed and grateful that we can share this joy with all of you today. The family kept growing. More than 2 years later, in December 2010, Nicole and Keith welcomed their second child together, Faith Margaret. After her birth, they shared a statement filled with love and gratitude. No words can adequately convey the incredible gratitude that we feel for everyone who was so supportive throughout this process, in particular our gestational carrier, they said. But family means more than just joyful arrivals. It also means standing strong during the tough times. When tragedy struck and Nicole lost her parents, Keith became her rock. After her father passed away in 2014, Keith performed the hauntingly beautiful Amazing Grace at his funeral. And when Nicole's mother died suddenly in 2024, Keith didn't hesitate to put family first. He even postponed a performance on Today to be with her during those hard, heavy days. Nicole opened up about the roller coaster of grief they faced. It's been up and down, she said, coming in waves. On The Ellen DeGeneres Show, she got emotional recalling just how much Keith supported her. He has been so good to me for 9 years, but for the last month, which has been a really tough time for me, he's been amazing. To have my husband just step up that way, it makes me cry. We all go through hard times in our lives, but to be literally carried by your partner, and physically at times, because I was so devastated. I'll do anything for that man. Yet even after weathering life's toughest storms together, Nicole and Keith face another challenge: balancing 2 superstar careers with family life. Both powerhouses in their fields, their schedules keep them on the move. Keith spends much of the year on long tours, while Nicole is often away filming or doing press for her latest projects. Still, they make sure one of them is always home with Sunday and Faith. To be closer to family, Keith is even preparing for a Las Vegas residency. It's not all that different from touring, minus the traveling, he joked on The Kelly Clarkson Show. Nicole has nothing but praise for her husband's dedication to their family. I have an incredible husband who is so willing to get on planes and fly places, even if it's just for a night, she told Du Jour. She shared a perfect example of their commitment. I had an opening of Sacré play 3 nights ago. and he's in the middle of a tour in the States. I said, "It's too much for you to have to fly all the way." "Back, don't worry." And he said, "I'm flying." He flew 10 hours to come and be with me for the night. And then he flew back and did a gig. That, for me, is love in action. That's extraordinary. But I would do the same for him, and that's what we've committed to as a couple. With sobriety under control and a strong, steady love with Nicole Kidman by his side, Keith Urban had won one of the toughest battles of his life. But life wasn't done testing him. New challenges started creeping in, ones that had everything to do with who he was at his core. He now had to juggle the weight of keeping his career alive, living up to the expectations of a family legacy, and trying to stay grounded under the bright, constant glare of fame. Each day came with its own set of pressures, and while he had come a long way, the road ahead was still full of twists he never saw coming. The unforeseen hurdles. For any singer, one of the scariest things that can happen is losing their voice, and Keith Urban had to face that fear more than once. His career hit a major roadblock back in 1997, not long after his band, The Ranch, dropped their first album. He started having serious throat problems that forced him to stop and focus on his health. Mary Lou Stout Dempler, an old friend, ukulele teacher, and former music partner, shared some gut-wrenching details about what he went through. In a chat with Woman's Day, she revealed just how bad things got behind the scenes. According to Mary Lou, there was a point where Keith's vocal issues were so severe he couldn't speak at all. He experienced severe vocal strain causing bleeding. His throat suffered extensive vocal damage. It was bad, she said. At one point, his throat was seriously irritated and showed signs of injury from overuse when he coughed, proof of how far he had pushed himself for his music. It wasn't just a sore throat or a few missed notes. It was a full-blown crisis that brought everything to a halt. Then, 14 years later, in November 2011, he had to postpone all live commitments to undergo surgery to remove a vocal polyp that developed during his Get Closer World Tour. A vocal polyp is caused by prolonged excessive voice use, leading to swelling that can become a polyp if not meticulously cared for. The symptoms were alarming: loss of vocal range, pain when speaking or singing, voice fatigue, hoarseness, and throat discomfort. For a vocal athlete like Keith, this was devastating. 24 hours before the successful procedure, which left him unable to talk for 3 weeks, he shared his gratitude with fans, saying, "I can't express enough my gratitude to you guys. It feels like family." Vocal surgery carries significant risks for singers, as no surgeon can operate without causing some scarring, which can worsen the voice and decrease vocal range. The outcome depends on the surgeon's skill, instrument quality, the patient's voice technique, individual healing, and overall vocal health. Luckily, Keith made a full recovery, and the results were extraordinary. He later paid tribute to Dr. Stephen M. Zeitels, who helped him, saying, "When you healed it and fixed it the way you did, I felt my entire spirit and life lift. I got way less stressed. I didn't have anxiety. It had such a profound effect on my whole being and world. That's how important my voice is to me." That recovery didn't just bring his voice back, it expanded it. He discovered he had a much wider vocal range what he called a crazy big range, and suddenly he didn't have to push so hard to hit the notes. "I didn't have to slam the pedal down to 70 miles per hour just to get there," he said with relief. It sparked a shift in his songwriting, too. He started exploring new sounds and new stories, especially the more personal ones he used to avoid. Keith Urban talked about the vocal cord surgery at the Voice Health Institute's Raise Your Voice Gala. "My voice was vulnerable, and that made me feel insecure," Keith said honestly. "And when your voice feels weak, everything in your life starts to feel that way too." He credited Dr. Steven Zeitels for not just fixing his voice, but also helping him reclaim his confidence and peace of mind. At the gala, other big names like Julie Andrews and Sam Smith also showed up to raise awareness for vocal health and support ongoing research to help people struggling with voice loss. With his voice stronger than ever and a whole new energy, Keith got ready to hit the road again. After a 3-year break from touring, he showed up for his High and Alive World Tour in 2025, which kicked off on May 22nd in Orange Beach, Alabama. He talked about being beyond ready for the tour, perfectly capturing the excitement building inside him. "It feels like a racehorse stuck at the starting gate, just kicking to get out." But this new chapter also brings change. After 25 years, Keith has parted ways with longtime guitarist Jerry Flowers. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt right. "I've always trusted that little voice inside me that says when it's time to change something," he explained. "Sometimes you just have to take the leap." Beyond his voice, Keith faced the profound responsibility of breaking inherited patterns. He is a devoted father to 2 teenage girls, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, and he has openly revealed his intentional effort to break the chain of intergenerational trauma, family, and personal loss. Keith Urban faced one of the most painful losses of his life when his father, Robert Urban, passed away on December 5, 2015, after a long battle with cancer. Just days before his passing, Keith had revealed that his dad had entered hospice care, speaking. During a tour of his exhibit at the Country Music Hall of Fame, he said quietly, "He's probably only got a few weeks, if that." The timing was especially emotional. Here he was, being honored for his life's work in music, while also preparing to say goodbye to the man who inspired that journey. "It's all come at a very strange time," Keith admitted. "This career brings extreme highs and extreme lows, often at the same time. It's bittersweet, because my dad is the reason I'm even here. He's the reason I'm living in America and making country music." When the news of Robert's passing broke, Keith released a heartfelt statement through his publicist. "I've been deeply touched by the outpouring of love and support that Nicole Kidman, our family, and I have received since my dad's passing on Saturday night. His long battle with cancer is now over, and he is finally at peace." Keith went on to talk about the huge role his father played in shaping who he is. "My dad's love for country music and America set me on my life's path. It shaped so much of who I am." He also recalled a special memory that left a mark on his young heart. His father once bought a Don Williams album without even knowing any of the songs on it. He just trusted that it would be good. That moment stuck with Keith. "It hit me in such a way that I thought, I want to make records like that, where people know it's solid and they'll want to buy it." Robert Urban didn't just pass on his love for music, he also helped shape Keith's stage presence. In Keith's So Far exhibit at the Hall of Fame, several of the performance outfits on display were handmade by his dad with help from his mom. He always thought it was important for me to dress like a performer, Keith shared. He really believed in making sure I looked the part. Just when it seemed Keith Urban had made peace with the pain of his past, grief came knocking. Again, this time in the most unexpected way. It happened while recording his emotional track, Break the Chain. The song wasn't meant to be heavy, but when Keith hit the second verse, something shifted. A passing mention of his late father sliced deeper than expected. In the middle of the session, he broke down in tears. That raw moment caught everyone off guard. His producer didn't stop him. Instead, he leaned in and encouraged Keith to stay in that vulnerable space. Because in that moment, there was truth. There was healing. Keith later explained that Break the Chain wasn't about sadness, it was about accountability. Growth, choosing not to pass down pain. It's not my fault where I come from, he said honestly. But it is my responsibility to do something about that, and not perpetuate whatever that was. And just like that, he summed up the emotional work he's been doing for years, not just for himself, but for his daughters, Sunday and Faith. Keith calls himself a work in progress. And maybe that's the most powerful part. He's still doing the work, still choosing to show up, still breaking the chain, strumming through the storm. The legacy of Keith Urban. Keith Urban's story is more than that of fame, hit songs, or red carpets. It's about what happens when a man stares down his darkest moments, chooses love, and rewrites his future. This isn't just a country music comeback. It's a personal revolution. At one point, Keith's life was nearly swallowed by addiction and haunted by the scars of a troubled childhood. But if you look at him now, standing in the spotlight, guitar in hand, you'll see that he is not just surviving, but thriving. He didn't just fight his way back, he transformed. Today, Keith Urban's name doesn't just mean platinum records or stadium tours. It stands for something much deeper: resilience, purpose, and the power of showing up again and again for the people and the life you love. His career has been on a high for over 2 decades, from early hits like But for the Grace of God to the foot-stomping energy of Where the Blacktop Ends. Keith carved out a sound that's all his own, an infectious mix of country heart, rock grit, and pop sparkle. His music is catchy and hits home. When he underwent vocal surgery, something that could have easily shattered his career, Keith came out of it stronger. With a brand new vocal range and a fresh wave of confidence, he leaned into more adventurous songwriting. The result was even more fans, bolder music, and a creative freedom that few artists ever achieve. Still, he never lost sight of where he came from or who he's doing this for. Because beyond the music, Keith Urban is a man on a mission. He has used his platform to give back in major ways, especially when it comes to kids. He's deeply involved with causes close to his heart, supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the American Red Cross, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and more. Through benefit shows like All for the Hall, he has helped raise millions. For Keith, this isn't just about singing the songs, it's about making a difference. That's what makes his journey so powerful. The same guy who once wrestled with addiction and self-doubt is now creating real change for his family, his fans, and countless strangers he'll never meet. So yes, His story is heartbreaking. It's raw, it's honest, and at times, it's heavy. We're talking about a boy who grew up with emotional wounds, a man who nearly lost everything, and an artist who risked losing his voice. But what makes it unforgettable is how he turned all of that pain into purpose. What do you think about Keith Urban's journey? The pain, the addiction, and the trauma. Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.